Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, January 5th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle most any used electronic gadget from your home or office. Don't just sell it, Gazelle it. Sell your used gadgets today at Gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
I saw 2 1s. That's what happened.
Where?
I just, I'd look in a different place than you think I'm looking. And I got double vision in it, and I went back in time. I actually went back
That's
in
all
time.
it takes to go back in time.
To
It's 2
November,
1s.
yeah. Joining us for Tech News Today, Editor-in-Chief of Tech Republic, Jason Hiner. Welcome to the show, Jason. Good to have you back, man.
Hey, always good to be here.
Excellent. Also joining us for our top story, Mr. Dan Ackerman, Senior Editor over at CNET.com, expert in laptops, which is what we're talking about.
Say so?
You are on a Lenovo laptop right now.
That is true.
And you said you've got a stack of laptop review units, and you just pulled one out of the deck, huh?
I did pull one back. I pulled up the first one I could find with an Ethernet jack to make sure we get a good Skype connection here.
Yeah. So which model is it?
This is actually one of their essential B series laptops, which are actually fairly inexpensive, but they're pretty decent.
All right. We are talking about Lenovo because they announced a bunch of new laptops to be shown off at CES 2012 next week. We'll just kind of go through the different ones here. ThinkPad T430U Ultrabook. 0.8 inches thin, less than 4 pounds, integrated Intel graphics, although you can also get an NVIDIA graphics card in it, Ivy Bridge. Is this their first Ultrabook, Dan?
It is not their first Ultrabook, but it is the first ThinkPad branded Ultrabook. They've also got this line called IdeaPad. That's their consumer line. And I think that's maybe one of the best kept secrets in laptopdom. They actually make really nice consumer laptops. They call them IdeaPads. They're kind of hard to find sometimes, but the designs are great. They're usually not that expensive. So they did an IdeaPad Ultrabook back in, I think, November. And that was pretty good. It had one of the more unique looks of one of the Ultrabooks, because a lot of them were really trying for that MacBook Air quality. In fact, I have it. This is completely coincidental, I swear. I have it right here. This is this is the first one I grabbed, but it doesn't have an Ethernet jack, so I didn't use it for this.
But
so see, it's this book bindery sort of look to it. It does not look like a MacBook Air.
And
this new one,
that's the older one.
That is the old one. That is the IdeaPad one. This new one is part of the ThinkPad line. So it's got that more sort of ThinkPad look and feel, and you can get stuff like the TPM chips and things that you need for business or that your IT guy needs.
Now, the one that's getting more attention, I think, from people is the Hybrid X1, also a ThinkPad line, Intel Core i5 or i7 CPU, 1.2 gigahertz Qualcomm chip. You heard me right. You can either get both. You get an Intel chip and a Qualcomm chip. Now, Dan, what's the deal here? Why are they putting a mobile chip inside of the laptop?
Yeah, listen, I like the guys at Lenovo. They make some really nice products. Like at this one, everyone looks at it on paper and goes, oh, that sounds really exciting. And then when you look at what it actually is, maybe less so. It's basically the X1 laptop from last year, which was their sort of super thin, almost kind of a MacBook Air laptop that didn't really come together 100% in the end. And what they did was they added one of those pre-Windows operating systems to it that a lot of laptops have, but nobody ever uses. And they added, to take it one step further, that separate Qualcomm CPU to power that pre-Windows operating system for, playing back some media, maybe doing some very basic web surfing. So that's really all that is. And they gave it its own little mini SSD drive.
And it's not a fast boot chip, though. You have to be in Windows already to use it, right?
I don't have the final hardware here yet. I'm not sure about that. Usually you can get into those other operating systems first, or from a pre-Windows perspective. But at the same time, There's a ton of laptops that have them. I've never met anyone who's ever actually used this. It really does take almost as long to get into that as it does to boot into regular Windows.
Well, the VentureBeat reported that you have to boot into Windows to use it, and it's being pitched as a battery saver when you already have the laptop open. Maybe you want to watch some video and you're on a plane. It extends the battery life.
I guess, but battery life is already so good across the board on so many laptops, starting last year at CES with the current generation of Intel Core i series CPUs. They really made a really major step forward just in terms of what an average consumer could expect from a laptop they would go to like Best Buy and pick up off the shelf. That's almost not as much of a concern anymore on a regular, not a monster desktop replacement laptop.
All right, before we let you go, they had a few other announcements. ThinkPad Edges, a couple of new ones of those. One with a Thunderbolt port. That's kind of interesting. Also a 14-inch E430 and a 15-inch E530. The series of B laptops like the one that you're using right now. Any of these stand out to you particularly?
That Edge series is nice because it's ThinkPad branded, but it looks different from those corporate ThinkPads that you have. They have the island-style flat-top keyboards. These are going to come out later in the year, probably around June, and that's why they can say we're going to have Thunderbolt in it, because these are probably going to have the next generation of Intel chips, codenamed Ivy Bridge, that does have native Thunderbolt support. So when you put those together, even though they don't say these are going to be Ivy Bridge laptops, that means that's what they're going to be, because that's when they're coming out, and that's who has Thunderbolt support. So put 2 and 2 together there, and that's why you'll get these in June rather than February.
Excellent. Jason Hiner, thanks so much for joining us. Dan Ackerman. I'm reading the wrong thing today. Dan Ackerman, senior editor, CNET.com. Dan, thank you. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to tell folks about ces.cnet.com. You guys are going to be busy like us next week.
We are going to be super busy. And Tom, I have to point out, we worked at the same place together for 5 years. This is probably the longest conversation we've ever had.
I think you may be right. Well, no, you were on Buzz Out Loud once. So we had sort of an extended conversation, but we almost never run into each other. I'll seek you out in Las Vegas, and I promise to have a longer conversation.
Okay, guys.
All right, thanks again, Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
So, other Dan Ackerman, Jason Hiner. What do you think of these Lenovos?
I mean, look, Lenovo is still a favorite with a lot of, business folks, a lot of the folks that, come to Tech Republic. And so they kind of remind me of the Lenovo ThinkPad designs are kind of like Mike Tyson in the 80s and 90s. Remember when he was a boxer? Boxers always had the really flashy shorts and robes and everything. And Mike Tyson always came into the ring. He just had black shorts, black shoes, no socks, just had a towel around his neck and was ready to go. He was just serious.
All business.
All business. Yeah. That's what Lenovo ThinkPads are like, right? There's sort of no frills. They're just serious about, getting down to business. So this kind of extends that, right? Even their sort of slightly flashier models that they're introducing, they're still ThinkPads. I mean, they're still about getting stuff done and getting the other stuff out of the way. The whole hybrid model is just a completely, horrible idea. As if Windows wasn't complex enough to do some things, right? Let's add another operating system on top of it to confuse people even more. When your battery gets low, just instead of using Windows, boot into this other thing, and then you can play your videos. And
as long as they're on the 16 gigabyte solid state drive and not the other hard drive. On the
solid state drive. Yeah, and so it's like, oh god, this is one of the worst ideas. A number of people have tried this, and it's very sort of 1998, right, to do dual boot and all of that kind of thing. So, I don't have much hope for that. But all in all, I think that Lenovo is still one of the companies that makes really reliable stuff and stuff that business users and enterprise users still really appreciate. And I know a lot of people who really like their stuff and will be thrilled to get a hold of a ThinkPad Ultrabook. So I expect them to sell pretty well.
I'm kind of curious about how they actually implement this hybrid mode in the X1 because there's no working models right now. People haven't tried it out. Lenovo's got that kind of situation where they have like little extra buttons on their PCs so you can swap into a different modes. It's not as odd as going hit start, shut down, restart into other mode. If they can somehow build in the Lenovo Media Player app, PowerSave, as the actual application shows up on your desktop, it might not be as scary as going boot into the other thing. I think it's a little strange that it's not a splash top kind of like first kind of, I can open the PC and access it directly. But I think the way they pull it off in software is really going to make this seem like either it's going to be a dud with a dual boot or it's going to be pretty seamless because swapping off to that much lower powered CPU in that same form factor, that battery is going to be huge on that thing. You'll be able to watch videos. I'm thinking
if you're constantly going into sleep mode instead of rebooting, I guess that makes sense.
But it's just, I mean, like, and I'm also curious since this is Linux, this isn't Android. So I mean, I know Android's based on Linux, but there's no. I think that's an opportunity they kind of missed. You could have had some pretty cool applications on this, and they've messed with that in the past. So it just seems like they kind of had. Okay, we had this in the lab. We kind of wanted to mess with this. Let's see how it goes because the X1's a really nice piece of hardware, I think.
We got a couple other stories to talk about besides Lenovo stuff today. Let's get to those. Barnes & Noble put out a press release today saying Nook set records over the holidays. Sales up 70% over last year. Sales of the Nook Simple Touch lagged expectations, but everything else, including especially the Nook tablet, did well. Content sales were up 11%. That's something where they're new in the competition against Amazon. And CEO William Lynch said it may be time to, quote, unlock the value of the Nook business. A lot of people expecting that means they might spin out Nook as either a separate division within the company or even a separate company.
Makes sense to me. Well, I mean, you can just, with the whole Borders saga, and Barnes & Noble and Borders have long been seen as very similar competitors. Companies that did the same thing. The bookstore model is a dying one, not dead yet, but certainly dying. And Barnes & Noble has really struck gold with something that's very forward-thinking, a really good competitor to Kindles. People love Nooks, and it makes perfect sense that that's the way they would go in the future. And you can't have the big old company lagging behind, dragging down the forward-thinking part of the company that's actually making money.
Yeah, Forbes has got an article about how Best Buy may be slowly dying as well. They're one of the few electronics companies that's survived over the past 10 years in a brick-and-mortar form. And this might be Barnes & Noble's way of having a second life. Jason, do you think it makes sense for them to spin it out as a separate division in that case?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea. And by the way, also Target today announced that their holiday sales were disappointing, especially in electronics and media and stuff. So, you have Best Buy, Barnes & Noble, Target, all talking about, having difficulty. I think a lot of it, you have to look and say, Amazon is really putting putting the hurt on some of these companies. I think that spinning out the Nook is an interesting idea because it is a different product. It is a different business. And a lot of the progress that they're making with the Nook is going to get hidden by the fact that they have a contracting business in books, in hardware or in hardware, in a hard cover, and soft cover books that is a shrinking business. So you're going to have a situation where the softness and the challenges they have in that business are going to cover up in their results some of the good stuff that they're doing with the Nook. I think the Nook tablet as a piece of hardware is a better tablet than the Kindle Fire. I really do. Kindle Fire just has better services, and Amazon has better kind of software and other stuff behind it, and that's why it sort of is a better experience overall. But I think that Nook, that they do have some good stuff going, as Sarah said, and people that have them really like them and like the ecosystem, and so yeah, I think it's something that they could spin out as a separate business, make it have its own IPO, and could probably do pretty good. They could even think about extending it to other devices and doing some interesting things.
All right, let's move on to Wheel of Speculation. Digitimes, our favorite 50-50 source for rumors. I don't even know if it's 50-50. It might be more like 30-70. But Digitimes reported sources in Google's upstream supply chain. That's what Digitimes is good at, talking to the supply chain. Believe an Android tablet is in the works and positioned to challenge the Kindle Fire coming in the spring at a price somewhere below $299.
Well, that would corroborate Eric Schmidt's assertion that within the next 6 months they would have an amazing tablet.
High-quality tablet, although below $299 doesn't sound like a high-quality tablet.
Well, yeah, and still, okay, so there's that. But also Digitimes is the same organization that, and we reported both of these stories where it's like they said that there was going to be a 7-inch iPad, and then that there were going to be 2 9-inch iPads that would be announced at iWorld, which is part of Macworld that Apple isn't even part of anymore and hasn't been for a while. So, I mean, I don't really put much credence to a lot of the stuff that Digitimes says besides having a fun conversation.
And on the rumor, it's that Google's buying the parts, not Motorola, which I think is strange. Why would Google be doing this independent of the hardware arm they're buying that probably has deals in place to get this kind of stuff anyway. So why bother having? We have our Google
They
branded
don't own
tablet.
Motorola yet.
Right, but this is not going to come out for a couple months. They probably will lock up Motorola
But
by then.
they can't
put their eggs in that
plan.
basket.
Yeah, they can't plan it that way.
So they will hold a Google tablet up.
Yeah.
While they're buying Motorola, so they have a competing
Absolutely.
Zoom.
Because
What is that thing?
and that'll,
Zyborg,
that
excuse
will
me.
prove that they're going to let Motorola run as an independent business, even though it's part of the organization.
Yeah, because Google's got a great track record selling hardware directly to customers.
Server,
Wait, no.
server box.
The server. What didn't they sell that first Nexus, and that went really well?
Yeah,
No,
they
I don't
didn't
think
make
this-
it though.
No, they didn't make it, but they
They
couldn't
just- that
sell
was
it
just a
properly.
retail store.
Well, maybe with the new redesigned Google user interface, it'll be easier to buy and find a person. You have like a circle for customer service when you have your problem with your Google tablet. I think it's going to be fun if it actually comes out. $300. I'm thinking at that price, it's better than the Fire. It's going to be better than the Nook, but it'll be like last year's iPad. Like that's the kind of thing you can get for $300 nowadays, right? It's not going to be as cutting edge, but it wouldn't be too
Is it going
lousy.
to be better than the Fire? I mean, what? Just because it's more expensive means that, I mean, the Fire for many people has been a real slam dunk.
Well, I'm thinking you
What
could
is
get,
Google going to be?
you can get the parts. I mean, if you're going to have a profit margin, something similar to like,
Just better parts.
yeah,
Well, we're leaving Jason out of the wheel of speculation here.
wheel.
Yeah, exactly. So look, here's the difference between Google and then Apple and Amazon. You know, Apple and Amazon treat tablets like it's a screen that's connected to a bunch of services, and that has worked. You know, Google and all of the hardware partners treat tablets like they're a PC, right? And that you have to put, if you put a bunch of cameras in them, you put, faster processors and lots of memory in that, people are going to want to, buy them more and they'll be willing to pay for them. And they'll be willing to pay more for them and all of this. That has absolutely failed. That whole idea is, I think, is if it's not dead, it's, dying a slow death. I actually wrote an article that published today called Why Android Tablets Fail, a post-mortem, where I sort of summed up some of this stuff. And so I think Google out there is thinking about trying a lot of things. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're sniffing around in Asia, looking at suppliers and talking about how much it would cost them to do a 7-inch tablet. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at, kind of what I think maybe Eric Schmidt was referring to, which is they're going to, try the Zoom thing again, where they're going to, try to create a great tablet and put it out there and give it another go. But I still think they're doing the wrong thing and they're heading the wrong direction. Google hasn't created this great ecosystem of apps and services that are the real key to tablets, and that's why people like tablets. Is that this very simplified experience where all that tablet is a screen that gets you to your music, to your movies, to some simple apps that help you do things like check your calendar, send a few simple emails. Maybe even check some projects and some other stuff at work. And, that's why people like tablets. They like them because they're not PCs. They don't want them to be like a PC and have to do everything. So I think this could be true because I think Google's sniffing around trying everything.
Yeah, it could be true. I think that's exactly right. I actually don't think it is true. I think there's probably some truth behind it. I think there's probably Google reference design maybe or prototyping or something like that going on that they would then sell to a partner to really finish up and manufacture in great amounts. But we'll see. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Gazelle.com. If you've got some gadgets lying around the house, you can get some money for them, probably, especially if they're recent. MP3 players, laptops, gaming consoles, smartphones. Sell or recycle them at Gazelle. If they're worth some money, Gazelle gives you the money. You don't have to negotiate. You don't have to wait on bids or anything. You just go to Gazelle. You type in the gadget you have. You give them some information about what kind it is. If it's a laptop, how much memory, how much hard drive, all that sort of thing. Tell it if you have the cables, the original box, the original software, what condition it's in. And then they will give you an estimate saying, hey, or not even an estimate. They'll say, we'll pay you this much. That's it. They'll send you it by PayPal. They can send you a check. They can give you an Amazon gift certificate, a Walmart gift certificate. You can even have the amount donated to charity. If they can't give you any money, they'll recycle it for you responsibly. But no matter what, they'll give you a shipping label. You print that up, throw it in a box, or you can even have them send you a box, and you send it off to them. Wait for your money. They actually provide tracking, too. I dropped off a laptop earlier this week that I'm selling to them. And I've got a page on my Gazelle where I can track the laptop. I can actually go into the FedEx page and look and see that it's in Sacramento, California right now. So it hasn't quite got to Gazelle. But as soon as it does, then Gazelle's tracking page is going to show me how much, whether they've got it and whether they're processing it and when I get my money. So you've got control over the whole situation. You can sell all kinds of gadgets. They make it easy so that you can just get rid of your old stuff and go buy the cool new stuff that you're going to be seeing coming out soon. We're going to be seeing all kinds of stuff at CES. It's going to make you want to get a little money. Check it out, Gazelle.com. See how much your gadgets are worth, and gazelle them at Gazelle.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, Vint Cerf wrote a New York Times editorial yesterday saying that the internet is not a human right. Now, that might surprise some people out there who feel like there's been sort of a groundswell saying, hey, you shouldn't be able to cut off internet access. It's an essential thing for paying bills, for communicating, for conducting life. But here's Vint's argument. He says, there's a high bar for something to be considered a human right. Loosely put, it must be among the things we as humans need in order to lead healthy, meaningful lives, like freedom from torture or freedom of conscience. It is a mistake to place any particular technology in this exalted category, since over time, we will end up valuing the wrong things. And he uses an example saying the horse at one point was essential to getting access to, health and jobs.
Getting somewhere quickly.
It would have been wrong to make horses be a human right. It's the things
it was a means to a better life.
The things that the horse leads to are what should be the human right.
Well, okay. I read this, and I thought that everything that Vint Cerf said made perfect sense. But at the same time, it's almost like a semantics argument a little bit, because the people who are saying the internet should be a basic human right, they're not necessarily saying this Ethernet cable has to be, plug in and I have to get access to the internet. It's the idea that information is a human right in order to advance all members of the human race. That just happens to be the best way to get it at this point. So I don't know that people are saying it's the internet, it's the information that the internet provides, and maybe one day that'll be something different.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's trying to get at is if we make the internet a human right, and then, it's hard to imagine this, but someday down the road the internet's replaced by something else, then we have to make that a human right.
Or evolved beyond all recognition.
Right. It's sort of like, would we have made newspapers and the mail a human right? And now they're sort of in the process of being supplanted by the internet. Now we got to make the internet a human right?
With this label of it being a fundamental human right or a human right, it means that there can never be a law against it, and having any kind of censorship would be a violation of your right to have it, which is a completely different idea than is it a privilege? I think it's something between a privilege and a right. It's not like a driver's license. Like, oh yeah, you know what? If you want to go on this, you got to pass some kind of rigorous sets of tests.
Some people have suggested that for the internet, actually.
There's a lot of things that should have rigorous sets of tests.
Especially for commenting.
That's why you have the captures, at least hopefully. But it's somewhere in that continuum. I think Cerf makes some great points in this piece, and it just makes you think. The horse concept, I love the way he brought that up. It's like, I don't know if I would want a horse just for no reason. Like, you're born, you get your social security card, your horse, and your Ethernet. Like, I don't know.
I think part of the problem here is calling it a human right as opposed to like a civil right. Mm-hmm. A human right, and I'm not sure why. Cerf is kind of grinding an axe here, and I'm trying to figure out what it was when I read this, and I'm not sure exactly, because it also kind of contradicts things that he said in the past, and so really not sort of sure where he's going with this. But by calling it a human right, I think he's wanting you to say, oh yeah, obviously it's not a human right. It's different than sort of being tortured. It's different than being sort of not having due process and those kind of things. Okay, great. But as a civil right, I think there are some arguments you could make that, the internet, what it represents is access to the information that you need to participate in society, right? And in the past, people have subjected other people by cutting them off from the information that they need or have, the access that they need to, one, get jobs or be able to participate in voting, be able to participate in their community. And so there are ways, and there are increasingly going to become ways in which if you do not have access to the internet, you will not be able to fully participate in society. I think that's going to become increasingly true. And so I think from that sense, as a civil right, there will be a case to be made for, some kind of access to the internet being part of civil rights, and I would expect within a couple decades to see countries where that is written into laws and expectations of citizens.
He says technology creators have a responsibility to use the internet to help users exercise their human and civil rights. I think that's what he's getting at. Is not let's not make the internet a human right any more than we make roads a human right. Let's make the things that we think are achievable through the internet a human right. So if you go through the list of things, if you don't have access to the internet, here's the bad effects. I don't have access to information. I don't have freedom of speech. If the internet enables those things, make those things a human right. And then it's up to the engineers. They have an obligation to ensure that users are able to use the internet for those purposes, that they're able to safely use the internet. He even says that means, for example, protecting users from specific harms like viruses and worms that silently invade their computers. Technologists should work toward this end. He's shifting the moral impetus onto the engineers.
Well, as the chief internet evangelist at Google, sounds like he's taking on a pretty tall order.
That is his current role. This guy, he's often called the co-father of the internet. He worked on TCP/IP. He worked on MCI mail, the first commercial email. He helped set up ICANN. This
is the sort of thing he thinks about
the internet from the beginning to the end. So yeah, when Jason asked what's his axe to grind, that's why we asked that. This isn't a guy who's just like trying to make a fast buck.
Yeah, totally. But I also, it seems like what he's ultimately trying to get at is like keeping government out of the internet. I think when I say he's got an axe to grind, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is I think he's getting at the fact of like, look, if we say it's a human right, if we say it's a civil right, then the government's going to want to get involved. And I think his thing is like, get government out of the internet.
Yeah. You know what? I think you're absolutely right. I think he's done a lot of thinking about SOPA. He came out clearly against SOPA and the problems that it would cause for DNSSEC in December. And I think this is probably an outgrowth of that thought process, saying, look, what's the ultimate position we want to take? Forget just the Stop Online Piracy Act. What is government's role? And I think this is an element of that. I think you're absolutely right. Couple more stories before we get to News Fuse. RIM may be getting out of the hardware making business. Peter Missick of investment banking firm Jefferies & Company published a note saying RIM has likely agreed to license BlackBerry OS 10. That's the one that used to be called BBX until they were forbidden from calling it that. It's based on the QNX operating system. Samsung and HTC named as companies that would license the operating system. Boy Genius report also saying RIM is now working on one model of the BlackBerry 10 only, the London, that they have ended work on the Colt and the Milan, and that they'll be showing off the London later this year after the second half of the year. The Verge saw the London in November. It's a TI map dual-core 1.5 gigahertz CPU, Gig of RAM, 16 gig onboard storage, front and rear cameras. Nice-looking.
I like the look of it.
Yeah, a nice-looking piece of hardware. But would this be, if this is true, would this be a good move for RIM to say, you know what? Here's the sea change we need. We start making the operating system and giving it to others a la Google, except we charge. So we strike a midway path.
I think it's a great idea if BlackBerry 10 is awesome.
Is BlackBerry 10 going to be awesome?
I don't know.
We're supposed to be able to see it at Mobile World Congress, according to a RIM spokesperson talking to PocketLint.
Well, I mean, RIM has been saying for a while that, we're like Apple. We control everything from the software to the hardware, and this makes our product great. And that's not working out so well for them. So for them to actually go and try out a different strategy and try to license their operating system, which actually it's not bad on the playbook. It's pretty good. There's just not a lot of applications out for it. I mean, it's pretty snappy. If they can get that hardware from Samsung, because Samsung makes some really nice phones. We've seen that with Android. It wouldn't be that hard because QNX is Linux-based. You probably could get it running on one of these devices pretty simply. HTC as well. They have some really nice hardware, and this could make the operating system take off a little bit more. On top of that, this operating system supports Android applications to a degree. So it could be an alternative to these companies if they don't want to go, okay, look, well, if we don't want to deal with the potential Microsoft lawsuits with Android, or we don't want to make a Microsoft phone.
But we've done all this work that's compatible with Android. Maybe we can port it easily onto. You're talking about like a TouchWiz or a Sense UI
on top of these kinds of
or
operating
BlackBerry
systems.
OS.
It's don't forget the big thing about them is security, right? I mean, BlackBerry's operating system has all the secure elements that the IT professionals love, and that's one of the reasons why it's still around. Although I'm still curious about their RIM's phone being a touchscreen without an actual keyboard, because that's one of the big highlights of BlackBerry's. But I think it's a good move if they're doing it.
Right move, Jason?
No. Well, I think it's like what you knew what I was going to say, right?
Yeah.
So look, it's fourth and long, and they need to throw a Hail Mary, and they can't decide which one they want to throw, right? Okay, we're going to license it. We're going to be like Android. Oh, but we're just going to make one phone, and we're going to go all touch screen, and we're just going to do so just like Apple and iPhone. It's like, okay, great, pick one. You can it's fourth down. You've got one Hail Mary pass to throw. You got to decide which receiver you're going to throw it to. You can't throw it to both. So they just have to decide, and I think they just don't know, and they're not sure what to do, and they're freaking out that in last year their market share just evaporated, and the value of the company just plummeted, and they're really not sure what to do. I don't think licensing their software is the greatest idea. It's even if their new OS is better, which it likely will be. It's going to be new. It's going to be, raw. Just every new OS is. Think about even Android and iPhone, the first iterations of those, they had a lot of challenges. And I expect that this one, even if it's better, it will. And they're not known for making good software. I mean, the problem that they've had over the past couple of years is just that their software is cumbersome to use, and it's slow and it's buggy. And, so I don't see them turning into a software powerhouse overnight. So I think the better move of these two would be for them to publish one phone, to make that phone really great, to make their software really tied in with it. And they already know how to do that. They know how to, do good software, hardware integration. So I'd say this phone that they put out looks pretty good. So I'd say focus on that, get that thing out, make it great, and, see what happens. See how the things play out.
I think it is fourth and long. Sadly, RIM is a Canadian company, and in Canadian football, you only have 3 downs.
Oh, Tom. I actually think Jason makes a very good point. Think if BlackBerry, if RIM has to put all their eggs in the London phone basket, and it is really good, then the branding for that is easy. The marketing for that is easy. It's just one phone. It's almost like the Apple model. Here we've got this cool operating system. It's amazing. This phone is there's nothing to compare it to because there's nothing like it. There are no different kinds of models that are sort of similar, but it confuses people because they don't know the RIM, the difference between their phones. It could work. I don't know.
I like the optimism.
I'm trying to be optimistic.
Somebody needs some optimism.
One quick correction. I think I called QNX Linux-like, or it's actually Unix-like. So they're official.
That's
I just wanted to get that. Thank you, Replicant, in the chat room.
All right. Finally, Tobii Technology is going to demo their mouse-free interface at CES this month. Probably will be this kind of thing you'll see on CNN and television a lot because it's eye tracking. You can tell where you're looking on the screen. Now, it doesn't entirely replace the mouse, but all it needs is a trackpad, and you don't move the cursor around with your finger. It tracks where you're looking and highlights it with a little circle, and then you just push the trackpad so that it knows, oh, you want to click where you're looking.
I like this idea. I've done this so many times. Like I have a dual monitor set up at home. I'll be staring at one monitor. I'll start doing some key commands and realize I'm in the wrong application. Happens to me way too often. I'd like this to actually work. I mean, considering the demo video, they're talking about large targets like on the Windows 8 start screen, right? Because obviously, if you have to keep moving your finger on the trackpad to get to these large targets, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because otherwise, you don't want to do that gorilla arm thing either. So I mean, it's just kind of this halfway solution to Windows 8. I would just like it for regular computing in general.
And people in the chat room are like, what if you have shifty eyes? You're just looking around all the time. You actually touch the trackpad so it knows to highlight, and then you.
My first question was like, I mean, I'm all over the place. The screen would be going nuts, but yeah, it's you focus and then you tap. So it's not all eye based, but I don't know. I'd love to check it out.
Jason, you said you've seen this before.
Yeah. Well, look, I like the idea. That people are just trying to experiment with interface, right? I mean, even if this isn't perfect, I just like that people are out there trying some different stuff and trying to rethink, the ideas of human interface. We really have had, besides multi-touch, not as much innovation as I think is possible. So I guess from that, there I see some problems with this. You guys have already touched on them, but I like that people are just thinking differently and trying some different stuff, and trying to think like, how could we do this? Siri, I think, is a good example. All of a sudden now, speech, Apple took Siri and made it a little more usable and did some interesting things with it. And now people are getting excited about the idea of not touch, but voice activated stuff again. And there's some more innovation bubbling up. And I think that's good stuff.
I think it's a pretty nice interface that they've got. So you touch the trackpad to activate it, then it follows your eyes. Apparently, it looks like it works okay. We'll have to see it at CES to see how well it works. And then you click to tap. I like that. That's a nifty way of having your pointer controlled by your eyes. I do want squint to click, though. I don't want to have to touch it.
There are a lot of blink to click suggestions in the chat room. You know how many times you blink in a minute?
Yeah, no, blink would be awful. No, just kind of a...
Or you could do the
Wink
Mission
to
Impossible 4 double blink.
Yeah, but then they can tell.
What if you're just
They can
really
see
nervous?
that you're
What if you're like, did I save the right thing?
The computer people will know that you're copying
This
things.
is really bad for people with nervous tics, right? If you're just like, okay, I got it. Or like if something gets in your eye, you've just deleted
if
your...
you have allergies,
okay,
bad
everything's
idea.
got a problem. I mean, a mouse is not good for somebody who doesn't
have a
use of their
hand.
arms, for instance. You got to have other, Yeah,
I agree
you're
with
meant to have
Jason on this.
multiple.
I like the idea that people are trying.
I do
Good for
too,
them.
absolutely. Let's move on to news views. Future Google TV products will have new brains. Intel is actually getting the boot, and future models will be powered by Marvell's Armada 1500 HD system on a chip, which is in fact ARM-based. The new generation of Google TV products are expected at next week's CES. Maybe this is the fulfillment of another Eric Schmidt prophecy about Google TVs being on the shelves within 6 months. Also at CES, LG, Sony, and Vizio will feature Google TV devices.
According to Nielsen, SoundScan album sales in the United States increased by 1.3% year over year, which is the first increase in such sales since 2004. CD sales were down 5.7%, but digital album sales rose by about 20%. Nielsen doesn't count subscription services in its numbers.
Oh, that's interesting. So just the fact that we added more legal places to buy things like Google and Amazon
Means that people buy more.
That's crazy. Can you believe that? I'm sure-
You also have more people buying digitally too. I think that's part of it. We all of us have been doing this right for 5-10 years or more. But I think part of it is just like more of our friends and family who are maybe lagged that a little bit are doing it and are a lot more comfortable with it.
Today, Zynga's stock neared its lowest price ever, closing at $8.91. In the past 2 days, the company launched 2 games, Scramble with Friends, which is like Words with Friends, and Hidden Chronicles. Apparently, the 2 games aren't really making investors happy because, they don't want the stock.
Faster Wi-Fi is on the way. Broadcom announced its first 802.11 AC Wi-Fi chips, the so-called 5G Wi-Fi chips, please don't do that, will come in 4 different versions. One single-stream USB chip that hits 433 megabits per second. 2 dual-stream versions. One handles USB, the other PCIe. Those both top out 867 megabits per second. And a PCIe chip that can hit 1.3 gigabits per second. Per the 802.11 AC specification, all these new chips will work with all legacy 802.11 standards and complement other wireless technologies, including Wi-Fi Direct, Bluetooth, and NFC.
I think this actually is 5th gen. This is A, B, G, N,
It's probably
AC.
true. It just makes me shudder.
Don't put 5G on there.
Speaking to CNBC, Piper Jaffray analyst Gene Munster wondered aloud if maybe Yahoo, under its new leadership, might acquire Netflix.
Good, because he was on TV. He should wonder aloud. It would be really weird if he just sat there silently.
He just held up a sign, thought
Guess
bubble.
what I'm thinking right now? That's a pretty wild acquisition. His reasoning stems from Yahoo's position as a content company, and Netflix's battered stock price puts the company at about $4 billion market cap, and the acquisition would be, again, in Munster's words aloud, on the cheap. According to Bloomberg sources, Yahoo may either acquire the Weather Channel or WebMD, as Alibaba may buy one of the properties to exchange with Yahoo to get its own stock back. I love how Yahoo has just become this new CEO. Maybe they're going to buy Netflix. That makes perfect sense. Yahoo's got all this money. They're on the up and up.
They got to do something. They're just sitting around.
Yeah, it's quite a turnaround.
Apple's issuing refunds for a 99-cent iOS app called Game Store. The app was created by Apple, and the company explained the refund in an email to customers saying the app was, quote, made available for sale prematurely. Maybe Apple's separating out those stores, like Sarah said. The App Store, the Game Store, maybe a music store.
Perhaps.
WebOS has its first result of being open source, actually. Andrew Holbrook, a research associate at Stanford, created an app that lets the HP touchpad control an MRI machine. The touchpad's mostly plastic design means that the device can operate without being affected by the MRI's magnetic field. Holbrook says he'll continue to make more WebOS apps.
Leaked cables appearing on WikiLeaks show correspondence from a U.S. ambassador to Spain's outgoing president urging Spain to pass a stricter IP law called Cinde Law, which some compare to, yes, SOPA. The cables say that the failure to enact the law would mean that Spain breached trade agreements and would be subject to retaliatory actions, likely a trade embargo. Spain passed the Cinde Law on January 3rd. I got it right the first time.
Yeah, I typed it wrong.
In my mind, I see snide.
Yeah, me
I know
too.
it's not the snide law.
Time Warner will double the window for new releases for services like Blockbuster, Redbox, and Netflix. That's not a merger. That's not happening. Hang on. That means it will take 56 days after the discs first go on sale to be available for rental. So you got to wait 56 days. The old window was 28 days. The move's supposed to bolster sales of DVDs. Also, HBO said they will no longer sell Netflix DVDs of its shows at a discount. But Netflix says, relax, they're going to get HBO shows another way, other venues.
On to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Now, I personally do not fear a dirty keyboard, but a lot of people out there really get hung up on the fact that their keyboards might be carrying some germs and bacteria. And for those people, VioGuard has come out with the self-sanitizing keyboard. All the user needs to do is to wave their hand in front of an infrared motion sensor, and the keyboard automatically pops out of an enclosure where UV lights will rid the keyboard of any germ that can't survive in UV light. It's FDA approved, although this Daily Tech story says it may not work exactly as well as some people think. Only 67% effective.
Your keyboard isn't really all that portable, really, if it's got to have this thing.
Well, it definitely seems like something that would be in a hospital.
It's a desktop situation.
You have this in a hospital just so that you can always keep things neat. I'm also thinking of a kitchen application because if you're touching chicken or something odd, you want your keyboard clean all the time. I don't know if UV light kills salmonella, but you need something like this.
I'm using a tablet in the kitchen these days.
Are you? You're just mucking up that screen?
Yeah.
On top of that, I'm thinking at CES this would be nice because then when you're not touching everybody's keyboards and they're just sneezing on.
Yeah, but I just have a laptop.
No.
Plus,
I mean, when you do
which
demos.
does not kill me only weakens me for the final blow.
Yes, this is true.
I mean, makes me stronger.
I'm thinking hospitals.
I worked in a previous I worked in healthcare, and there were people with like compromised immune systems, and so actually I could see something for
That's a good point.
Folks like that, right? Where somebody may use their computer and them not realize it. And all of a sudden they get sick, right? A lot of them have to be real careful about that kind of stuff. So, other than that, just people who are particularly afraid of germs. But I think it could have a real use for those kind of folks.
I hope it makes a really cool noise when that door comes down and then the keyboard is, like, yes.
Here's your brand new sanitized keyboard. Go nuts.
Onward into the calendar.
AT&T's LTE network has gone live in 11 new markets, including a lot of California. San Francisco, San Diego, and Los Angeles are part of the team. If you want a white Epic Touch 4G, hey, good news. It's coming to Sprint January 8th. Also coming in white is a white Samsung Galaxy Nexus. That's actually only the 16 gigabyte only version, but there is a 32 gigabyte version of the titanium silver coming on February 6th.
I can't believe the Nexus is wearing white after the stories I've heard.
After Labor Day.
Also that.
Who does that? I know people do. I just whatever. ICANN is pushed ahead with the January 12th launch for new top-level domains. About to get some people in a frenzy. Guess what we're all getting at midnight on June 30th, 2012? I bet you will never guess.
June 30th, 2012?
June 30th, 2012.
New shoes?
New Blizzard game.
Well, maybe those are both true, but we're also getting a new leap second. Yes, that's what the International Earth Rotation Reference Systems Service made official. So get ready. A leap second is a positive or negative 1 second adjustment to the Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, time scale that keeps it close to mean solar time.
This is important for sysadmins, apparently.
Oh, yeah. You actually have to make sure that your systems can handle the new leap second. Last time we got a new leap second was back in 2008, so pretty cool. And finally, Sprint's first 4G LTE markets, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio are coming by mid-2012.
LTE, it's really
Sprint.
coming
It's
from
the
Sprint.
thing.
It's
It's the thing to do this
That
year.
WiMAX.
On to incoming. And we got a couple of voicemails today. First one from Adam with a good point about the Roku streaming stick. Adam?
Hey, TNT crew, this is Adam in Indianapolis. I wanted to let you know that you may have missed one of the key benefits of the Roku streaming stick the other day. If you go buy a brand new TV and spend a lot of money on it and it has apps and you bring it home on day one, everything is great. But what happens in a couple years when, those apps require much stronger hardware than what you already have? You're not going to go out and spend another couple grand on a brand new TV, but with the Roku streaming stick, you can just pop it out and pop in the new model and you're good to go. All right, great show. Thanks.
This is a common debate I have with Brian Brushwood on frame rate, the idea of whether you could just upgrade your TV with firmware and that'd be okay, or if you need new hardware. This kind of splits the difference. It says keep your TV and just, it's almost like a USB stick, except it's HDMI.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that it's just this USB stick, or it's a stick instead of it being a box, I mean, it's really not that big a difference. I don't know who's buying a TV going, it's going to have applications that'll last me 5 years. Like, does anybody do that with TVs? Or
Not
they go,
yet.
my set-top box does that.
Who buys a phone saying it's got applications? And see, that changed. Used to be no one cared about applications. That'll change on television.
Apps on TVs have existed for years, and people still don't care.
Word.
They're
Okay,
starting
marked.
to care more and more.
Marked.
I care more than I did a couple years ago.
Marked and mocked.
We also have a news tip from Brian in Atlanta on the Google Voice tip line.
Hey guys, this is Brian from Atlanta. I don't know if you guys have talked about this, and I apologize, but I won't get to listen to the show until tomorrow morning for today. But there's a breaking news story that I think you guys need to cover. It turns out some guy has decided that he wants to sell his iPhone app called Buckshot, and he is currently selling it on eBay. The app is bringing in the current developer about $240 a month in income. And the current bidding price on the app is $14,600. Yep, you heard that right. $14,600 on an app that's making the developer about $3,000 a year. Anyway, thought you guys might like to know that one. Take it easy, guys.
Yeah, and it did. It ended up selling for $16,600. It got 95 bids. Apparently makes $300 a month. So they're not, if you're confused, they're not buying just the app like you would buy an app from the App Store. They're buying the ability to develop the app and sell the app. $16,000 to buy an app that only makes $300 a month?
But there's free shipping, and you get it within 2 to
That's
6
good.
days.
Yeah.
Which I don't even to send you the zip file or something.
Yeah, the math doesn't add up.
And it's called Buckshot. It's a multiplayer photo scavenger hunt game.
I think I've heard of this.
I don't know that you'd pay that much.
Well, there's got to be something more to it. The people who bought it
They're gonna
either
start
see a lot of
spamming those
potential.
20,000 users.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think maybe it gets you an in. Like I assume he's getting like all of his, registration with the App
right.
Store, right?
Sure.
He can, now the person, if they've already got some apps, it's like, oh, great, I can use this, this guy's, registration
It's like
to
selling
sort
a
of get
company.
my apps.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
On to the emails. Jay in Mechanicsville, Virginia, regarding the Microsoft Nokia marketing budget. We talked about Paul Thurrott implying they were going to be spending hundreds of millions, not just 100 or 200 million. Jay did some math. He said, as I was listening to the podcast, my mind was doing quick math. Microsoft could take the money, and if we assume the build cost of a phone is $250, they could put 800,000 phones in users' hands at no cost. I suspect a wiser use of their money, even more if AT&T chipped in or they set the price at $25. Now, they want to sell millions of phones. So 800,000 is not what, near the top of what they want to sell. But it's kind of intriguing. If they just went and gave out 800,000 phones and people started talking about them and showing them to people, would that sell more phones better than a marketing campaign?
So this is like Microsoft just like, I guess, sending out phones directly, like a direct mailer kind of thing?
Yeah, instead of doing TV ads and...
That's an interesting idea. I mean, the thing is, some Microsoft phones were available for like a penny or less than, like, or for free on contract, and that didn't really move them anyway. So if Microsoft was like putting them in your mailbox, you might go, hey, what is this? I think it would be one of the craziest campaigns ever.
I don't know. I think they already tried it, right? I mean, like I said, these like the Samsung Focus was on sale for not very long, and they were already selling. They were giving you 2 of them. They would give some people with family plans 2 of them for free within a couple months of that thing being released. So they haven't been able to give these things away literally. So I don't know. I have a hard time seeing people getting too excited about these for free. But if they get Nokia to build some better phones, which, apparently they are. The Lumia 900 is supposedly coming early next week, probably as early as Monday is going to be announced, and it looks, better than anything that Windows Phone has had so far. And they're going to try to give sales incentives to these AT&T sales reps, right? Like the more Windows phones that you sell, or the reps that sell the most phones get sort of these cash bonuses. They're going to start pushing them on people a little more than they have. To be honest, I think that those 2 factors are probably going to drive more phones than anything.
Than giving away.
Yeah.
Next email from Daniel, also Twit Diet Daniel on Twitter. He says, okay, guys, for the new year, which is off and running, I've decided to make part of my workout regimen Tech News Today based. Below is my plan for each episode of TNT for the rest of this week and next week. Now, each 2-week period will increase in severity and will be based on what was highly mentioned in the previous 2 weeks. I can't wait to get started on today's show, so please don't work me too hard. Tech News Today workout, weeks 1 and 2. Apple Television mention, 10 push-ups. Patent Wars or SOPA, 20 sit-ups. Dropped Skype call, 10 up-downs. Or Jason gets a new phone at a half mile to tomorrow's run.
Now, does that include vendor phones? Because we could work you.
I know. That's what I mean. Absolutely. I review a decent amount of phones.
He says gets. He doesn't say buy.
I think he means buy a new phone.
He means buy a new phone.
Yeah. But we can be sure to mention Apple Television, SOPA.
We mentioned SOPA today, so that was 20 sit-ups.
And
every time we mention it, does he have to do 20 more?
Well, yeah. Does it work right now?
Yeah, heck yeah.
It says highly mentioned. So I don't know if he's passing by.
So it has to be a conversation.
It has to be a news item.
Well, let's talk about Apple Television rumors. No, I'm just kidding. I love this. There's always the drinking game element to stuff like this, but this is the fitness game element.
I'm just thinking if this guy is just standing around listening, and he just drops to the ground doing 10 push-ups.
Suddenly.
Yeah, just suddenly. And then we have like a second Apple story. This keeps happening. I would just love to
give me 20.
I'd just love to see that.
This is good.
We're gonna
he's
have
listening
to
to it in the car. He's got to pull over. Oh, crap. That's funny.
Well, no, he says he's listening to it during his run. So that would be kind of awful if he was driving. All right, that's it for this edition of Tech News Today. So you're off the hook now, Twit Daniel. TechNewsToday.reddit.com is our subreddit. If you want to have an influence on what stories we cover, we want to hear from you. We want to know what stuff you want to hear. We choose the stories based on what we think is a good mix of the most important stories of the day. But one element we consider is the stuff on our subreddit. It's a big element. So go and vote for stuff up and down, or submit stories at TechNewsToday.reddit.com. We got 4,000 people in there doing it. Wow. So join up with them.
Good crew.
Thank you, Jason Hiner. Always good to have you on the show. Let folks know what's going on with you on the internets.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, Google+. You can go to my personal site, jasonhiner.com. You can go to my Tech Republic blog, hiner.techrepublic.com. And lots to report next week, I'm sure, from CES. Hope to see all of you guys, and hope that there's some fun stuff to talk about.
Looking forward to it. Darren Kitchen joins us on the show tomorrow. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll see you on Friday.
Arm looked so long in that angle.
His arm already is long.
This is why TNT needs to be in 3D.